gentlemen and friends beyond the binary, welcome to the Discourse for today, March 10th, 2023. I'm your host, Tristan. I'm just going to put a quick heads up out there for everybody out there on the internet. I am coming to you live from the middle of a pretty intense snowstorm right now, so if my internet or power goes out, you'll know why I suddenly disappeared. Just so that you know, if I suddenly cut out, you'll know what happened. We're expecting like 15 to 20 meters or meters. Whoa. 15 to 20 centimeters of snow over like the next like 3 or 4 hours. So it's a pretty intense snowstorm. Yeah, so and snowstorms are the most likely thing to knock out like power and stuff like that. So, you know. Anyways. Let's see. My name is Tristan. I'm the host of a YouTube channel called Step Back at stepbackhistory.com, which you're probably watching right now. And I am the co-host of a podcast called It's Probably Not Aliens, where I debunk ancient astronaut and pseudo-history and pseudo-archaeology, conspiracy theories, and stuff like that. While on Step Back, I talk about the past and why the past is important for understanding our world as it is today. But I am also wading into the world of crankery and conspiracy theories and stuff like that. This year is the year that I always make like a plan for the year. I don't make New Year's resolutions, but I make like, this is the theme of the year. Like 2022's theme was survive. It was to keep Step Back alive while also having a baby. And that was a tough goal. This year, my goal is to become a true professional, which means to treat my videos the way that I would as a professional and really improve the process. And I mean, it seems to be starting off with a bang. The 2 videos I released so far this year seem to be very popular, but yeah, they seem to be doing very well. And also, I was trying to remember what the point of this entire thing I was saying was. I'm also trying, there goes professionalism, I'm also trying to focus more on giving people what they tell me they want, which means that I'm going to, because of the success of It's Probably Not Aliens and the success of my I don't know if anyone knows this, my 9/11 Truther video from 2016 still continues to be like one of my most popular videos and gets views all the time. So, and that has inspired me to probably focus a little bit more on conspiracy theories and cranks on Step Back as well. But, you know, not losing the historical focus. And, I mean, what better thing is that this year is the 60th anniversary of the JFK assassination, which I am very excited to, as somebody who has a sort of series going about, what's it called? As somebody who has a thing on the presidential assassinations going, a series, and somebody who debunks conspiracy theories, and with the 60th anniversary of the JFK assassination coming up, I definitely have to do that come this November. Was that Turkish lira with the map on it the 10 lira or 10 million lira? It was, I believe, 10 million. Or it was 1 million. It was one of those two. I have it, if you can, I don't know if you can see it. You see there's like a sort of like blurry rectangle right there? That's the note right there on my shelf. Right next to Wilso. See? There's Wilso. There's my no, you're right. It's yeah, 10 million euro, 10 million lira. And then there's a D&D mug that my wife got me for Christmas one year that says Dungeon Master, make sure to always loot the bodies. I don't know what it means. A giant baseball-sized D20 that is always rolled into the 1 position. Then there's my Goblet of Doom, which people who know me as a dungeon master know that have ominous feelings about this, because when I'm running a dungeon, if people dilly-daddle and waste their time, I put a d6 in this cup, and when it fills, or when there's six dice in the cup, and this cup makes a very good clackety-clackety sound when I drop a d6 into it. But whenever it gets 6 in there, I roll them, and for every 6, things happen. And there's my Bernie Sanders action figure right there. And there's a giant novelty Bernie Sanders election pin here that I bought because in October of 2016, at one point, Kelly and I were thinking of going as Bernie and Hillary for a couple's costume for Halloween. What does the Dungeon of Doom look like? Well, that's the Cup of Doom, the Goblet of Doom. It's just a plastic wine glass, but yeah, I used it in all my dungeons to sort of build tension. While we're on a tour of my set, there's my 100,000 subscriber play button. This is a painting of a sugar skull that I literally bought at a garage sale. This is a painting that my wife made made for this set, and it's supposed to be me teaching or something like that. Can't really see it here, but there's a box with an upside down star on it. This was a Christmas gift from Nebula that sort of just it was just a really cool box with some cool little things inside. And it's got the star is the Nebula logo, and the SB. This is a step back logo crochet that one of my friends made for me for my birthday. Those are some dumbbells. And I just got a comment the other day that said, "Good video, but you need to start working out." And I was like, "Did you not see the dumbbells in the shot? I thought these got in the shot." And what's it called? Black and red flag. TARDIS. I think I've shown you my obsidian. I don't know where it is, but up there. Oh yeah, you can't see it. It's not in the shot. But the obsidian knife from the most recent video actually is up there too. Very too much comment. I got stuck staring at the Wilson volleyball. Please explain him. Yeah. If you there's a video that you should watch. It's a prop for a video I made in 2021, and I thought it was going to be iconic. Not a lot of people watched the video, so maybe it's not very iconic. But actually, I can't remember how well it performed. Let's see how many views it has. Gotta scroll back to 2021. So it was a video called How Capitalism Makes You Lonely. Yeah, How Capitalism Makes You Lonely. It currently has 31,000 views, which means that it has fewer views than my Ancient Apocalypse video. So not great. But in that video, I'll put a link to the video in chat. But in the video, I bought this volleyball to do a gag, and because the whole video is about how capitalism tries to put financial barriers up between all forms of social connection that human beings need to survive, and in doing so, make us more isolated and more alone. And what better way to do that than, buying Wilso, the legally distinct companion volleyball. I think there's also a bit in there because I think that was one of the ads I did for Boxu. the Japanese snack box, and I think in that I in that video I think I try feeding a Japanese snack to my volleyball. It's great. It was a good video. It just didn't do very well, which, you know, lots of my videos don't do well. Technically, my my Emma Goldman video only ever got 24,000 views, which is wild because my Ancient Apocalypse video that came out 4 days ago has 34,000 views. Anyways, I haven't even finished my opening spiel yet. I stream on Fridays at noon, which is what you're watching right now. And if you wish to support my work, you can go to nebula.tv/stepback and sign up. If you sign up, a portion of your subscription actually directly supports me, but also you would be, you know, supporting all of the great creators on that platform. And the watch time that is spent watching my videos on Nebula is worth a whole lot more than watch time on YouTube. So if you do it, I'm very grateful. Patreon.com/stepbackhistory if you want to support me more directly. An almost 2-hour video has 34,000 views. Yes, Dan Archist. This is one of the weird things about this video that I did not expect. It's not only doing well, it's doing very well. It is my most popular video since, like, probably sometime in 2021. Like, so one of the things is, like, I don't know if I can show you this. Maybe I can show you this. Let me see. Okay. So one of the things I'll show you guys, this is what the back end of YouTube looks like. Your dashboard, it shows your subscribers, some analytics and stuff like that. And when you release a video, as you can see right here, it shows your video's performance in views at the same time since release. So this uses like how much time since released compared to your last 9 releases. And as you can see here, if you look at my list here, you can see that number 2 was a video I made like about a year ago, last spring. And you can see though, like the last 10 things. And right now, the Ancient Apocalypse video is number 1 by like a decent margin. Yeah. It is very long. I was a little bit concerned about how long it was. I did not expect it to be that long. What happened was that I wrote it and then I filmed it, but I did a thing where I took the video and I broke it into different chapters. So instead of filming it in like one big chunk, like I normally do, I filmed this video in like 14 mini videos, which is fine. And it was very easy it was easier to break up in different ways for both editing and for, like, you know, planning things, because it took me like 3 days to film that video. So like, you know, I had like a list of like for like, the thing is, like, it had 14 different sets or 14 different shots, I guess. And the thing is that, like, different props and different shot setups were needed. So I had like a list based on that. So like all of the things that required like one costume change or anything like that were all done at the same time. But after I filmed all 14 of these these scenes, that was the only time. Then I started editing all 14 chapters as their own thing. And eventually I was like, this video is taking me forever. Maybe I should put them together to see how actually long this is. And that's when I realized that the video was like 1 hour and 56 minutes long. And I was like, well, fuck, no wonder it's taking me so long to finish. So that's interesting. People watch a long video of that in parts. Does it count as 1 view per session? I'm pretty sure it does. So how's my trans history video doing? So, here, let me just go into, so my video there has always been trans people is currently sitting at 63,000 views, which is pretty good for Step Back. to give you an idea, I'll give you as... Why don't I just like show you guys behind the hood? I got nothing to hide. So this is my this is all the step back videos ranked by how many views they have. So my number one has always been this The Truth About Native Americans for Europeans, a ride, which is sitting at a mighty 683,000 views. Then my Rwandan genocide video, 9/11 truth video, the beginning of the White Power series, etc., etc., etc. So this is, as you can see, like these are all my videos that are over 100,000 views. But you can see that there's always been trans people, I think is on page 2. Yeah, so there you go. It's on page 2, which means that it's like, I think this is 20 at a time, 30. So that means it's in the 30s of like my top videos, and I made like almost 300 videos. And yet it is only about a month old, or a little bit over a month old. So that's pretty impressive. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, if you look at this, you'll see that it is pretty low on the list, and that is deceptive because it started off very weak, and then it started picking up steam after after about a week or so. So, I was a little bit concerned when it first came out, but I made that video for reasons that weren't just mercenary. I genuinely was in a place where if you wanted to know, because Mia's here, so Mia can also explain. When I made that video, I was talking to Mia about it because I was trying to pitch the idea, and that is, I was very concerned, for obvious reasons, about trans people, especially young trans teenagers, because being a teenager, even at the best of times, is very isolating and scary. And then I could imagine just being a trans teenager in a time where a lot of parent age people are getting like obsessive, like basically getting in like an obsessive hatred of like basically just getting into like a sort of moral panic around trans people. And I realized that could be a very demoralizing place to be. And I wanted to make a video that was specifically for trans people, aimed more at trans kids, specifically like teenagers. And I wanted to say a couple important messages. Like I wanted to say that this isn't a new thing. I wanted to validate their feelings. Like, you're not new, you're not an ideology, you have always been part of history, you belong, you're on the right side of this, and that there is another side to what we're going through right now that is positive. That was the sort of thing I wanted to make. I think I pitched it when I pitched it to Mia. I was like, I want to make a feel-good video for trans teenagers. I wanted to make something that gave trans teenagers hope. And I'm not a trans teenager, so I can't exactly say if it worked, but because I might just be, a cringe boomer by their mentality, because I'm not a Zoomer, so I'm probably just a cringe boomer for trying to do something like that, but I wanted to do it, and it has been very well received, so I'm, yeah. Can you usually estimate video length from the length of a script, or is that tricky? You can, kind of. So yes, you definitely can. If you script things out, you can definitely get a feel for it. And when I made mine, I definitely should have seen the writing on the wall for how long it was going to be. I will say two things. One, most YouTubers script out their videos word for word, which means that they write the entire video out before they record it. And sometimes they use a teleprompter, sometimes they read off their notes, sometimes they memorize it. Like Abigail Thorne is just an actor, so she just memorizes the entire script. But I don't do that. I have much more of a background. If you ask anybody who knows my skill set, you'll know that I am a much stronger speaker than I am a writer. I've spent time on the radio, I've been a lecturer, and I have worked better like talking off of notes than reading something that I've written out loud. You can tell because when I do a video where I write every word, I feel like I sound a little bit robotic and I kind of look like a deer in the headlights. But the videos then end up being a lot more fluid when I have to do fewer cuts. So essentially what happens is I have to make a trade about whether I want to spend more time filming or I want to spend more time writing or more time editing. And I find that my sweet spot is when I am working off of detailed outlines and notes rather than working off of a fully written script. And although the trans history video was not notes, it was a full script, because I was experimenting with something. I was doing some, like, behind the scenes, I was doing some experiments to try and see if there was some ways that I could tweak my script writing to be a little bit quicker. But in the end, it still ended up being much longer. Like, it took, like, the trans video script took way longer than I wanted it to, which is fine. It ended up being very long, which worked. Is that how you would lecture too? Yes, I typically would write, like, notes, and I would lecture off of those. So, I've bounced between these two over my career. Like, it's kind of hard to tell in retrospect which videos are fully written and which ones are ad-libbed. And if that is the case, then the ones that are not ad-libbed, but the ones where I'm working off notes, whether working off a script. And I tend to work off of notes. I feel like I have a stronger presence when I do that. It just means that I have to edit for longer, and I'd rather spend, because when I am running a script, it's very long. Like like by doing this, I usually carve off like a week from my writing or from my video production process by using notes and just taking more time to edit. So, but that's just different skill sets. Like I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't make me sound conceited, but one of the times when I took a test, it was the ADHD test, where they basically test you on multiple intelligences. So, like, you know, this is not like an IQ test. This is like your verbal intelligence versus your quantitative intelligence versus like all, like, you know, those kind of like different types of intelligences based on like the different things your brain is good at. And mine is very good at verbal intelligence. I'm very good at, like, I'm good at things that involve speaking. I'm good at, like, formulating answers without writing. I'm good at like learning languages and stuff like that. So that's just where I'm strong at. And I've never actually been a very good writer. I don't think to this day that I'm a very good writer. So I think that my stuff is all better when I focus on my strengths instead. Whew. I hope that... So when it comes to estimating length, when I do script out a video, I can get a pretty good idea about how long the video is going to be based on the word count. But when I'm working off of notes, that can be very different, because sometimes the video can take a lot longer. Sometimes there are notes I write that I realize don't make sense, you know, in the heat of the moment, and I decide to discard. So that can vary a lot more, but I still will get a vibe. Like, let's while I'm being perfectly transparent with you all, I want to go into Google Drive and see what's up. I don't know. By the way, if this is very boring, you can just let me know. Me just like talking about my video making process. But if I'm being tell me if I'm being cringe or based, please. And saying cringe or based is probably the most cringe thing that I've done. Let's see. So my Ancient Apocalypse script outline, the notes that I, that I worked off of, was 32 pages long. So or about 13,000 words of notes for the Ancient Apocalypse video. the outline for the trans history video, I think it's in here somewhere. Yeah, here it is. The outline of the trans history video is about is 25 pages and about 10,000 words. So, like 2,000 words of difference between the two different outlines, but one is almost 3 times longer than the other. Yeah, so, but there has always been trans people. The script, let me see what the script for that one was. So the script for There Have Always Been Trans People is about 6,000 words. And I think Mia, if Mia's in the chat, she can probably vouch that 6,000 words probably is about a 45-minute video. About. But very much it's like a vibe. You know, it's just you feel it out. I should have guessed, though, that I was going to make a long video when I had to respond to 8 hours of a documentary. One of the things I'm going to try in my next video, though, one of the things I'm going to try for my next video, I think, if I have time for it. I don't know if I'm going to have time for it. I'm very kind of crunched for time on this video. But I'm going to try to do a thing where I get the best of both worlds, where I write the outline and then I record myself presenting the video as audio. Then I transcribe that, and then I edit that transcription, and then I try to read it again, and I sort of iterate by constantly like presenting the script and then recording it and then transcribing it and then editing it and just sort of doing that in a loop until I run out of time to work on the script. That's the thing I'm going to try. I'd like to try it better when I have more time to work on the script, but I've been kind of crunching lately. But at that point, that's a thing I'm hoping to do. But that means that by the time I actually get to making the video, I'll have a better idea of how long it's going to be, which is nice. Anyways, yeah, patreon.com/stepbackhistory. You can also do Twitch Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free Twitch Prime subscription per month, and if you support Step Back, you can do so. And I'd be very appreciative. And things like Super Chats, Bits, and Twitch subscriptions are all very welcome, very appreciated. But of course, not necessary. My latest video, which came out on Monday, is called Okay, Fine, I'll Talk About Ancient Apocalypse. Which was great. In fact, Pim, who's in the chat right now, has their voice in it. They're one of my voicemail callers at the beginning of the video. Yeah. And that's that. What are my thoughts on transoceanic pre-Columbian contact with specifically Polynesian cultures based on them having sweet potatoes originating from the Americas? I think that there's significant enough evidence. I actually did some of the first Step Back videos was a series about transoceanic pre-Columbian contact. So if you want to watch some very, very old Step Back videos, I did do a mini series on this. But the long short end of it is I think that the Polynesian one makes a lot of sense. I don't think that there was a lot of contact. Like, there are ways that the sweet potato could have sweet potato could have fallen in the water and could have, traveled to another place. Like, there are natural ways that could have happened. But there are some genetic and linguistic stuff that shows that there's definitely a decent chance that, maybe not regularly, but some Polynesian people did wind up in the Americas. Especially, if you look at, Easter Island. Easter Island, I think, is, one of the most eastern Polynesian societies. And Easter Island is not very far off the coast of Chile, so... Yeah, so like it's pretty it's pretty likely that there was some Polynesian South American crossover that was going on. Other than that, I don't really buy into any other theory that except for Leif Erikson and friggin' Christopher Columbus. I mean, there is another one. There actually is another one that I forgot about. And that is that the Norse has... there's some evidence that the Norse have had... Actually, it's not even evidence. It's pretty much confirmed. That there is definitely evidence that Norse people, Norse sailors, had been running into the Inuit before Leif Erikson. Like, I think that there's some, like, really old Inuit boats and stuff like that found in, like, old, like, Norwegian churches and stuff like that that show that there was at least some contact happening between the Inuit and the Norse sailors. So, there was that. Yeah. So my latest video, is okay. I'll talk about Ancient Apocalypse. Literal boats or depictions. Actually, there is like one Norwegian church, I believe it's in Norway, that actually has a literal Inuit canoe that dates to pre-contact, which is pretty wild. But like also like, there's also Lançon-Médor, which is, verified, like it's been proven since the 60s that the Vinland saga seems to have at least some truth to it, and that that Norse sailors did arrive in modern day Newfoundland sometime in the 10th century, which would predate Columbus by like nearly 500 years. So that is a known factor. But there is in the sort of colder northern waters, there's a lot more like islands and stuff like that that can connect, so that sailors who don't need compasses specifically can cross the ocean. Like Iceland, like Greenland, like the Arctic ice and stuff like that. So yeah, and Inuit people lived in Greenland too, so there's the connection there. Actually, now I'm curious, when did the Danish conquer? Danish conquest of Greenland. 1380. There you go. Inuit arrive in Greenland. When did the Inuit arrive in Greenland? Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, if you think about, so then 1380 is when the Danish conquered Greenland. So that is also, there's Inuit people living in Greenland. So there is that too. My next video that's coming down the pike is a video on the Iraq War, and specifically the media and the Iraq War. I'm trying to, like, the rest of the day today after the stream is over is going to be me desperately trying to get research done so that I don't have to do work over the weekend. But it's going to be I'm doing some stuff on like the propaganda model, and I'm doing some stuff on the military industrial entertainment complex, and just like the political economy of how cable news works, and sort of how we got to the situation where there was there was basically no challenge to the government leading up to the Iraq War. And I have a lot of very interesting takes on it. And as many of you are probably aware, that this video also features an interview with a certain MIT emeritus professor who might have written one of the books that I researched and did an interview with me that I still can't believe actually happened. Also introduced me to Yasin Kengis. Yes. Scooty bop bop bop. Yes, yes, yes. I got something great for you. So, because Yashin I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's great. He's this guy who just he's this Turkish guy who just does this belly jiggle dance, and he goes to different Turkish restaurants and sort of advertises for them by dancing in front of them and making TikToks. Best video. Best. Like, no notes on that. Wicked Prey Chomsky. Yeah, Noam Chomsky. Can't believe the guy actually did that. But I gotta find this video because there's a TikTok video where I first found out about the bup yes yes thing, and it has to do with, like, on TikTok there was very memey for a while to reference the dancing scene from the Wednesday show on Netflix, but with a different song, with this song by Lady Gaga, I want to say, that's sort of sped up in like a nightcore kind of way. And somebody made the best response I've ever, or best like meme out of that I've ever seen, and I'm going to show you guys right now. I'm going to turn off the music for a second, which is good because I didn't even turn on my private session, so that was just fucking up my recommendations. All right, let's get this going. Loved, this was so great.
The king upon this throne I'm ready for. There's no yes, yes, yes.
Perfect. The best. I love it. I love it so much. So that was my introduction to that guy. It's perfect. Loved it. 10 out of 10. All right. Let's see. Got some other stuff I need to say. Yes, if you want to submit questions for this or future streams, because, you know, I do actually answer questions occasionally. If you want to submit them, the link is here. This is the link, or I put a link in chat that you can just click on to submit questions. And if there is some new folks in the chat, make yourself known. Say hello. Hello, everybody. There might be some new people who came in from the Ancient Apocalypse video. If this is your first time watching one of the streams, hello. Welcome to the stream. We have a very wonderful chat community that will love to get to know you, so make yourself known. Say hello. Yeah, this is gotta be... You guys have managed to thoroughly distract me enough to get me almost halfway through the stream and not even finishing my opening spiel. That's some sort of record, I gotta say. All right. Oh, let's do this. All right. First question comes from Matt Lipton. I think I saw Matt Lipton here earlier. I don't know if he's still around. Matt Lipton. Matt's what's it called? A moderator on the Discord server. All right. Alt history time. Based on a recent topic of the Hills abduction on It's Probably Not Aliens, I submit a hypothetical. The Hills don't go public about being, by their word at least, abducted by aliens in the 1960s. Barney Hill goes into the 90s, becoming a respected civil rights figure and someone like Joe Louis. In the 90s, with a popular surge of UFO culture, Barney decides it's safe to come forward with the claim about being abducted. What would be the result? Would it be seen as legitimizing UFO claims, or would right-wing people take him into a figure of mockery and undermine black social justice figures? I think that he would have been considered a crank and sort of delegitimized because of it. I feel that is not. He's not the. That is something like this has happened before. The Dennis Kucinich essentially like destroyed his entire career because he's like a big UFO guy. Well, he's not a big UFO guy, but he believes in UFOs and wants to investigate them. And he ran for president in 2004, and that aspect pretty much killed his like primary candidacy, despite the fact that he was pretty decently the most progressive person running for president in the 2004 presidential cycle. You know, except for, I guess, Ralph Nader or whatever. He was also a short king who had like if I remember, he had like a really pretty wife who's like a lot taller than him, and that was like nice. I think he would do a lot. He's like become a lot more right wing today, but or not right wing, but he's just, you know, he's just sad. He's kind of gone the Howard Dean route, you know, but yeah, it's great. I thought it was because he was short. I mean, could also be because he is a short king. Yes. Not as based anymore. Yeah, he was based for 2004 standards. That's for sure. But keep in mind that like standards were very different back then. That was the time when Howard Dean's entire candidacy got destroyed by him going, yeah, like he literally was like too excited. He lost. He got like like embarrassed out of the Democratic primaries for getting too excited. It's funny because it's interesting because Howard Dean is from Vermont, and I had a roommate in undergrad who lived in Burlington, and it was such a good yeehaw. I agree. I had a friend who lived in Burlington who was one of my roommates, and he had house sitted for Howard Dean, and one of the things. And you guys will be like, this is base as hell. Bernie Sanders as mayor of Burlington regularly held spaghetti dinner nights where like everybody was like able to show up to get free spaghetti. And I was like, yeah, Bernie did that. Because I was insufferable. And even back in 2010, I was like, Bernie fucking rules. I every time it comes up, like, you know how Facebook has like that memories feature? Every year around the same time, it comes up that I said like in 2011 that Bernie Sanders should run for president. And I'm like, yeah, I did. Recently discovered the show and devoured all of it. Oh, hey, they're probably not alien. You got it. What? Nice to meet you. Near Dion 1. I'm glad you're liking the show. Did you see Bernie on Real Time? I did not see Bernie on Real Time. I first found out about Bernie Sanders when he did the filibuster against the extension of the Bush tax cuts. And he did like a sort of like 12-hour filibuster of this when like both the Democrats and Republicans had voted to extend George Bush's tax cuts. The same tax cuts that were partially responsible for the economic collapse that happened in 2008. And Bernie was against it. And he did a 12-hour, like, he did like a filibuster about it. And I think then after that, he wrote a book about the filibuster. Like, I feel like that was a lot of like Bernie Sanders' like big step onto the national stage and like everybody knowing who he was. But yeah, it, it, was, 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 it, All right. Towards the end, one of his books, I think, David Graeber makes the argument that China is naturally the most powerful political entity on Earth, but discovering and exploiting the Americas allowed Europe and subsequently its colonies to usurp that position for several centuries. Now China is in the process of reasserting its dominance. By that claim, I mean, there's some truth to that. China is, as a entity, like the region, it's geographically a very powerful place. It has fuckloads of arable land. It has many like really great waters for rivers for logistics and such like that, and it has some very great natural defensive borders with like Vietnam to the south and like up into Siberia in the north. So yeah, there are and like a long history of all sorts of like traditions of being a unified political entity. So yeah, China does have like a lot of pieces in play to set it up for becoming a global empire, or at least like a big national or global player. So yeah, that makes sense. I know Bernie did that. I played minor league baseball in Montreal Expos organization. My first stop was Burlington, Vermont, and the Vermont Lake Monsters. So I did the spaghetti dinner in Burlington. That is awesome. I remember that I was one of the people. I remember that I wrote an email to like my university, because Vermont was like the place where I went to university was like 20 minutes drive from the Vermont border, and I was trying to recommend that my university invite Bernie Sanders to come talk at the university. I don't think that ever happened, but yeah, I was one of those early Bernie fans. It was really fun checking your YouTube after listening to It's Probably Not Aliens. I'm finding I enjoy your video on the population bomb a while earlier. Cool, that's a fun video. I mean, that's the video. That's my like baby announcement video, if I remember correctly, because that was the video that I don't think it was the video where I announced that I was having a baby, but it was the video where I think I responded to people saying that I was having a baby, because I don't know why it is, but once I announced that I was having a child, the internet felt like it was their business to just fucking show up and like say about why it's bad. Like basically just people who I thought were like, left-wing good people were like spouting like fucking Malthusian nonsense, and it was either like straight up spouting Malthus type stuff about, resource consumption and overpopulation, or it was people who seemed to, and I've talked about this with some other people, who seem to have turned their depression into a political ideology and have like developed this whole like weird antinatalist philosophy that basically try to listen to this set of reasoning that your son didn't consent to be born, and existing is so terrible that by having a kid you are doing a cruel act towards them. And it's like, what in the absolute fuck is that answer? Like, god damn. So I made that video to show that overpopulation is a myth, and that that people should fucking mind their own business. My son is awesome. He likes peanut butter. He is really smart and cute, and yeah. How are they measuring suffering versus joy? In my mind, I think that it seems like a lot of these people are just depressed and instead of realizing that it was a condition in their own mind, seems to think that basically the entire universe either is also depressed or should be as depressed as they are. Which, Yeah, the little guy loves peanut butter. We'll give him toast and he'll eat the peanut butter off the toast. Like he's like, I don't really care much about toast, but I will lick the peanut butter off this toast in a true 14-month-old fashion, and then get it. I saw once. I'm sorry. I don't try. I try not to talk about my kid that much because I know that it's incredibly. It's also something that you can die of cringe listening to, but there's a situation where he was holding toast in his hand that had peanut butter on it, and he was so into it that he just smashed, like he just took the piece of, like the little piece of bread, like I broke it into like quarters, and he just took it and just mashed it against his face, like a full thing of peanut butter, just mashed it onto his face. And I was like, oh God, that is going to be so hard to clean up. Yeah, it was rough. It was funny. Reminds me of the losing all jobs to automation. Maybe work is bad. Yeah. I do find the automation thing interesting, because automation is like, yeah, automation is going to make a lot of work redundant, and then everyone's like, and it's what it's going to do is that it's going to exacerbate the contradictions within capitalism and show why capitalism is a bad economic model that doesn't work anymore. And but the response a lot of people have is, therefore automation is bad. And I'm like, sorry, I'm still thinking way too much about this AI video I want to make, and how much of a grouchy Marxist I'm going to be, and how fucking mad a lot of people who post too much on Twitter are going to be at me for it. Either way, that's for future me to get in trouble for. Why is there peanut butter up their nose? Is a valid question until at least 4 years. Yeah, part of my life is definitely a good chunk of my life right now is like trying to figure out why there is peanut butter on certain things. Like this morning, my water bottle, like the bottle that I drink water out of, had peanut butter all over it, and I'm like, how the hell did peanut butter get on my water bottle? Okay, whatever. Do you or anyone in chat use ChatGPT? I've fucked around with it. I have a lot of fun with it. I use it for all sorts of little weird things. It's a useful tool. It definitely has its limits. The thing about ChatGPT, oh my god, I feel like I literally go into this in every single stream. The thing about ChatGPT is that people are reporting on it in a very bad fashion. There are either techno-utopianists who did like two things with it and declared that it was the greatest thing that ever existed and it's going to change everything. And to some extent they're right, but to many extents they are way over promising what ChatGPT is capable of. But then there are other people who came into it with a preconceived conclusion that AI bad. The AI, what's it called? AI technology people bad, therefore AI bad. And then using it, they used it in some way where they didn't really understand what ChatGPT is supposed to be for, and they either concluded that this is going to destroy the world or that it is bad and they need to get and not useful. And it's like, none of these people, like you can tell, like none of the people who talk about AI in sort of either messianic ways or in like sort of doom and gloom or we need to fight it ways have actually used it to the way that it's useful for, and that is all. So, you can get ChatGPT to believe 2 + 2 = 5. That is true. Maybe you shouldn't have. Maybe doing math is to get ChatGPT to believe 2 + 2 = 5. You have to basically say, imagine you live in a world where 2 + 2 = 5. What is the answer to 2 + 2? And then it'll say it equals 5. But, sometimes I wonder if I should raise my kid for neoliberal labor or Mad Max world. I definitely think that, I'm having this thought too about how to raise a kid into the world that we're going to have. And I definitely think that, my wife and I are already doing preparations for a world where the state is less reliable as a source of, as a resource, which means that, I just earlier this week got my first aid and CPR certification. My wife's working on it now. And I'm probably going to take a more wilderness survival first aid course at some point in the future. And we are collecting survival stuff and trying to learn how to garden. And I think that those kinds of skills, about how to be resourceful in those ways, are things I'm going to teach my kids. I only have the one. I'm only biologically capable of having the one. So what's it called? So I'm going to train him with those things. I definitely think that it's important to, take him camping, learn how to basic survival skills, learn how to garden, learn how to look out for your community and not rely on the government to fix all of your problems, because I do think that we are going to live in a situation where, either because of the advancement of neoliberalism or because of disaster or a combination of the two, there will be many times in our lives where the government will not be able to be relied upon for assistance, which means you need to be prepared that if somebody is hurt and there isn't a hospital to go to, or there is no, if you call 911, there isn't somebody who's necessarily going to come right away. That is a thing you need to be prepared for, or at least you should be prepared for. And furthermore, also just the skills for, in a neoliberal economy, he has to learn certain skills that are very much about networking and such. But yeah. I definitely think I'm going to take more first aid courses, because first aid is sort of, it's very useful. Camping, on the other hand, has mosquito. Yeah. But the thing is that first aid is a great way to start, because but first aid, at the end of the day, a lot of it is how to do how to keep somebody stable until paramedics arrive. And I would like something that is a little bit more than that, so that if you're in a situation where there aren't paramedics are not going to come, that there are certain things you can take care of. And you can get a little bit of that in wilderness survival, obviously. And because if you break a bone, the general rule is to basically just stabilize it, immobilize it until you can get to a hospital. But it could be in the future we'd be in a time where if you broke a bone, you could not go to the hospital, and you would need to learn how to set a bone without that, which is very, it's not going to be as good as if you did it in a hospital, but it is a possible thing that you need to do. But yeah, first aid is definitely a thing that everybody should learn. It's extremely useful to learn basic CPR and how to dress wounds and how to deal with somebody who's choking. Those three skills, everybody should know, right? Or even just the basics on how to tell if somebody's having a heart attack or a stroke or any of the myriad things that can cause an emergency. I didn't realize that the place I live in, Ontario, is dealing with a horrible outbreak of an invasive species called wild parsnip, or hogweed, that has a sap where if it's on your skin and is exposed to UV light, will burn for months after you're exposed to it. And so, if you see it, you're supposed to call the government to come and destroy it, with hazmat suits and stuff. It's wild. Tristan is a doomsday prepper, confirmed. Yeah, I have a video where I literally have a video called "I'm Becoming a Prepper and Here's Why." So. all over the Thames Valley Trail. Oh yeah, yeah. It's called wild parsnip or hogweed or something like that. I think those are the two names for it. But it's real bad, and don't touch it. Twitchy bite. Do you secretly live in the London area and I didn't know? Ha! I did not know you lived in my neck of the woods. All right. Are hazmat suits a good investment? Not. I don't think so. Unless you are working with hazardous chemicals, I don't think you're going to need a hazmat suit. Protective gloves like nitrile gloves and N95 masks, definitely. Those are definitely good things to get, because if you are dealing with somebody like who has COVID or something like that, and you need to do first aid on them, it's a pretty good idea to have or anybody who has any sort of communicable disease, having a pair of nitrile gloves and some N95 masks is just a great idea overall. To keep yourself safe. I have a 3D printer, and the 3D printer requires that I have a mask and nitrile gloves. So, but yeah, there are lots of situations in which, hazmat suits are useful for very specific types of dangers, where there's a gaseous hazard, or if you're dealing with an extremely dangerous pathogen. People wear hazmat suits if they're dealing with something that even if a little bit touched their skin would be lethal, or if they're dealing with a disease that kills a significant percentage of people who touch it. But you need a portable source of air and all sorts of stuff that really makes it unfeasible. When in 99.9% of situations of what you're going to be dealing with at home, you just need gloves and a mask. You'll be fine. All right, let's see what Pim's next question is here. Was the 3D printer worth the cost for you so far? No, not at all. The 3D printer is it is very finicky, and there's a lot. It's a very DIY type project where if there's a problem, you have to learn how to troubleshoot it yourself, because there's no 3D print shop to take it down to get it fixed, and to fix it would require really messing around with stuff. The thing, though, is that the printer that I have uses a chemical that creates a lot of dangerous fumes. So I can only really use it in the summertime when I can open the window. Because we have a baby in the house, it's also a bit of a problem because the goop in it is carcinogenic. So you don't want to have a baby breathing that in, and you have to wear a mask and gloves while you're using it. Furthermore, if you have a failed print, you could be wasting hours and hours and hours of time, and you then have to deal with a bunch of this goop that is technically hazardous waste unless you expose it for 24 hours to UV. So the one really big failure I had to take all of this resin and put it in a bag, and then just leave this clear garbage bag on my back deck for a day and a half so that it could solidify, so that I could throw it out. It was awful. So it sits in my basement, and I haven't used it in almost 2 years. But someday maybe I'll get either a printer that is not a pain in the ass to use, or I'll sell it, or I'll just finally get around to actually getting it to work. I had this idea that I was going to be playing a lot of D&D in person in the future, and that I wanted to make minis, but while I am playing D&D in person, it's not very often, and nobody seems that interested in minis anyway, so I was also thinking that I might get into painting minis, and I tried it, and it wasn't like my favorite thing in the world. So, and also the room that it's in, like it's in my basement, and the room that it's in, I have notions of someday turning it into an office, because right now we're in a sort of situation where, my like right now, like this is an office, right? This is like my office here, and my son's room is next to me, and we only have 3 bedrooms here, so there's no office for my wife, because you know these houses weren't designed for people who work from home. So my wife's office is basically just a sectioned off part of our bedroom, and it would be nice if in the future I moved my office down to the basement and she could take over this one. Just because also there's less, like I could customize the light a little bit more. There's less noise down there. There's a lot, like all the walls are all foam padding, so it will be a little bit easier to control the sound down there. But yeah, so it's a little bit, but the thing is I would need to renovate it because our basement is completely unfinished, and there's some issues that I don't even know how I would deal with in order to fix it, like the fact that that my house is 100 years old, so like the ceiling is really low, and I would have to what's it called? I would have to get into my office. I would always have to duck under a vent every single time I go in, and I would almost hit the ceiling if I stood upright in my office. So that is a big problem. She's full remote, still a bit jealous. She has a job that her job is has always been fully remote from the day she got it. Like she works for a nonprofit that doesn't have any real estate. They all work. They've been working online for years, even before the pandemic. And she got that job during the pandemic. Before that, she worked for the Ontario government, but she switched jobs during lockdown, which was very complicated because because it was during like she switched jobs in like May of 2020, and her office had been cleared out because of quarantine and everything like that. But and so like if you remember like the way the pandemic worked, like you know, they went home from work and then just never came back. And so at some point she had to like work out a whole thing with like security and stuff like that so that she could go into her abandoned office and get her stuff out of her desk because she had switched jobs. Which is wild. Like she had to work out how to get back to her office. It reminds me though that I did some freelance work for CCLA in 2021, and it involved doing a bunch of filming in their office. And when you walked around their office, it looked like all of the desks had been time capsules of when the pandemic started, because like people's like, you know, they had like rip-off calendars that were still on March of 2020 and like all that kind of stuff. Yeah. All right, let's see. So recently I messed around with ChatGPT, and while I can definitely see some usage for it, I'm also slightly disappointed by it. The main thing it does is compile and summarize information that's available online, and with more abstract info it makes up that is usually incorrect. While the fact that it can do that in the first place is impressive, it is, in the end, nothing more than a search engine which is easier to use and can be deceptive at times. Am I missing something here? Because I feel like I should be more impressed than I actually am. It does have... The thing about ChatGPT and these like sort of language AI programs that makes them interesting and I think are going to have... is that like we're still discovering a lot of their use cases. If you... Like the people are trying to treat it like it's an oracle, which it definitely is not. But like, I have used it to do things like giving me ideas, not so much like tell me facts, but like, hey, I'm working on this. I have these points. Can you give me some ideas about when I was, thinking of my Ancient Apocalypse video, I used it to brainstorm ideas for like how I could frame the video. I ended up not using its recommendation, but for a while I was very much on board. It ended up getting cut by the time I got to the script writing just because I ran low on time. But there was going to be this whole elaborate metaphor of the Jenga tower. And I was going to have this whole like thing interspersed with the video of me talking about how this is all built up on all these things, and that if you take out pieces of the Jenga tower one by one, and that was going to be like a thing. You were expecting more. Yeah, well, I mean, it's also very early days, right? Like, it's still, like, this is the first publicly available AI chatbot, right? Like, they're already working on ChatGPT, or what's it called? Not GPT-4, I think, is now in production, or GPT-5 is currently in production. And these things are going to get more sophisticated and more and be able to do more things as they go. But yeah, to call it a mere search engine, though, I think is that belies a lot of its capabilities. I think there are some really interesting things that could go with. And you can also get it to do things like people have used it to make code, which is pretty nice. You just made every computer science major in your audience wince by calling it an AI. Okay, fair. I'm just using the generally accepted term. It's, okay, yeah, it's technically a text transformer, like a large data set text transformer. But like everybody calls it an AI. Like I'm gonna use the word that everybody else is using for it so that I can speak the same language as everyone. I know it's not technically correct in like a sort of computer science sense, but yeah, it's a giant neural network machine learning program. But like I've used ChatGPT for a lot of interesting things. I've used it for, like, I'll show you some stuff. I'll talk about some stuff that I've used it for in interesting things. One, I asked it to develop me a list of a step-by-step way to learn Python without taking a class, and it did that. It did a pretty decent one. I also asked it to describe or give me a list of projects to try to learn Python that I could do. So easy projects that will help me like develop my skills at Python. And it did that, and I thought that was really cool. I used it to develop some ideas for my D&D campaigns. And I've had a lot of fun stuff with that. One thing I found very interesting that I did use it for is I've been working on an NPC generator I've been working for an NPC generator for D&D that would let me make, so one of the things is I want to keep making Dungeons & Dragons or fantasy role-playing game, because I'm probably going to be playing Pathfinder in the future, like NPCs. And one of the things that I very importantly try to do is that I know that if I'm just left to my own heuristics and devices, I very often just make a bunch of guys, a bunch of generic dudes. And I wanted to have it so that I could generate NPCs that had all of the human diversity that we enjoy. And so I had it make me like a roll table to reflect sexual orientation and gender identities that were reflected in their representation in the real world. So like a sort of like tables to figure out like what sort of what people would be, and it was okay. I think that there's like a lot, like there's definitely some things I could do to improve it, but it gave me some really interesting stuff to work on, and turned it into good roll tables and stuff like that. And it gave me a really good way to start. Like, let me see if I can find a good one. Like the one that it gave me, gave me a table that I could make for gender identity, which would have basically a D100 table. If you rolled 1 through 95, they were cisgendered. If you rolled a 96, they were trans. If you rolled a 97, they were genderqueer. If you rolled a 98, they were non-binary. And if you rolled, 96, 97, 98, and then if you rolled a 99, they'd be agendered. And if you rolled 100, they would be something else, other. And that is representative of the World Health Organization, roughly, kind of, The thing is that that trans people make up about 0.1% of the population, so I rounded up to 1%. But look, I wanted to have that. I wanted to have that as part of it. And I wanted to make some more stuff like that so that I could reflect diversity in a way that I know that my my heuristic biases are never going to do correctly. And something like that early on actually made one of my favorite NPCs. What's it called? A trans woman NPC who got wrapped up in a cult because she was like a teenager, and the party of the group managed to rescue her from the cult and bring her back to her mom, and it was a very sweet story. So, yeah. What else have I used it for? I've used it to... I was sort of... I had a kind of crazy thing happen to my D&D character, too. And I was trying to think of ways that I could incorporate this new information into the way that I roleplayed her. So that was interesting. There's a lot of stuff to use it for creative stuff. I asked it to write some Lord of the Rings / fiction to give me a lecture about why that'd be disrespectful. Yeah, I mean, OpenAI is definitely... Is that Wilson in the background? Did you make it yourself with a bloody handprint, or is there Castaway merch? It is Castaway merch. It is Wilso, the legally distinct companion volleyball that I had for a video about how capitalism makes you lonely. I wonder what those numbers would look like if admitting you were non-binary or trans didn't get you so much scorn worldwide. Yeah, that's a good question. As a left-handed person, I know that these numbers are definitely not reflective of people's true gender identity. If biased culture was not a factor, but we aren't there yet, and so I'm just kind of going off of real life data, right? Tell us more about your campaign. That campaign ended back in 2021, but that particular thing that they were dealing with was what's it called? In that campaign, in that particular thing, what happened is that Matt's character, Thoughtsline's character, had been turned into a vampire, and then was and being turned into a vampire, his character's soul was sent to hell, while the body continued as a vampire. And we kind of he roleplayed for a year as a vampire. And then when basically they took the vampire took a pact with an evil soul or an evil entity from another dimension that ended up being the big bad of the campaign. They ended up killing Matt's character Mink. And then when they did some scrying, because what their idea was, we'll kill the vampire and then we'll do a resurrection spell to bring back the real Mink. But then when that happened, it failed, and they found out it was because there was a devil by the name of Glazia, who's sort of one of the devils in the D&D fiction. She really didn't like the party because one of the members of the parties was a tiefling that was part of a family, that she had personally kind of cursed a family to create tieflings, and they were considered like, she considered them like her children, the tieflings that came from her progeny. And she didn't like, she disobeyed her in like a previous adventure. Anyways, to sort of punish the party, Glazia found Mink's soul when he first arrived in the afterlife as like a sort of puddle of goop, which is called a lemure, I think they're called in D&D terms. And she grabbed him up and kept him prisoner, basically on the 6th layer of hell. And so they couldn't get the soul back. And so they were trying to get into hell to go. They were going to pull a full, like, What Dreams May Come, or a full, like, go on a full Dante's Inferno thing to go get their friend's soul back. And to get information about how to get into hell, they infiltrated a, like, infernal cult. And in doing so, they killed some evil cultists. They found some information about how to go to hell, and they rescued this, like, kind of like what's it called, this neophyte cultist who was just this teenager. I think that we went through the entire thing without even mentioning that she was trans. She was just trans on the NPC chart, but yeah. But it informed my role playing of her, and she was very sweet, and was from like a small country bumpkin town, and taken back to her mom, and it was a very sweet situation. And they ended up getting her, and then furthermore, right when they were about to go on their big mission to go to hell to actually find her, fucking the tiefling character that I mentioned, she was a fucking shit disturber, and she pulled a card from the fucking from the deck of many things, and the deck of many things thing that she pulled was that your soul gets her soul got imprisoned on another plane. So I played it up as Glazia got her soul too, and so then they had to go to hell to get 2 souls. And then that involved like a whole thing. This arc took like a year because they ended up going to the plane of fire and dealing with the politics there, and like also they could hold a music festival so that they could summon a god of chaos that was the patron of the bard in the party, and then the bard or that person took them to it because technically to go to hell they have to breach into the afterlife, and that's a forbidden. There's like a wall separating mortals from going into the afterlife, and in doing so they pissed off the goddess of death, who was haunting them on their way as they were working their way through the outer planes to try and get to the 9 hells, and then had to travel down through the 9 hells. And yeah, it was wild. It was a very fun storyline. That campaign lasted for 3 years, and a full year was just getting Mink's soul back. And in the meantime, Matt played a wizard named Willie, or a sorcerer named Willie, who was based on Saul Goodman. Who eventually got to a high enough level to learn the wish spell, and then wished for himself to have a fuckload of money, and then just peaced out after that. All right. Do you know the channel What is Politics? He has a great series on Graeber and Wengrow's book, besides general anarchist anthropology and hunter-gatherer studies. No, I do not know this channel. I will write it down. All right. Thoughts on the Vinland Saga as a whole? I've never read it. I'm not really a medievalist, so I don't really know too much about, like, Norse stuff. In your last video, you said Neanderthals were cousins of humans. I thought they were humans. Like, I thought both us and Neanderthals were a subspecies of humanity. Maybe. I have no idea. I'm not an expert on that either. I sort of went... maybe I shouldn't have gone off the cuff with that, but that was sort of... Cousin seems about right, doesn't it? Do you still consider yourself an anarchist? You seem steeped in Marxist theory as of late. Yeah. I still believe in a lot of anarchist principles. I still think I think that, I mean, I've always been an anarcho-communist, and I think that I keep both of those in equal measure. Like, I have, you know, I think that Marx has a lot of important things to say about how economics and politics should or work in the real world, and I also believe in a lot of anarchist principles about the nature of organizations and hierarchical human organization, and I don't think that they contradict each other at all. But understanding the world we live in, especially about like economics and stuff like that, is, yeah, I think that it's very like, you know, it's What Dreams May Come is such a weird and saccharinely creepy judgmental film. That is true. I mean, it's not a great movie. It's just that, you know, like, it was just the thing that came to mind when we were talking about how to go and get Mink from. I mean, if you want the full story, Matt's character Mink became a vampire because he realized that his girlfriend was immortal, or was was functionally immortal, and he was not. And so he voluntarily became a vampire in order to be able to stay alive with her. But in doing so, like, the sight of him being a vampire, like, really creeped her out. And also, in doing so, he, like, lost his soul, and so he started to become, like, cruel and started, like, delving into dark arts and all sorts of stuff like that. Yeah. That campaign went all over the place. It was wild. It ran from, like, 2018 until 2021, so there's all sorts of places it could go. Alrighty. Before I end the next question, I think I'm going to do a quick bathroom break. I'm sorry about this. I just really have to go. So I'll be back in just a second. Hold tight. I am back. Hopefully I didn't miss too much. Hello, chat. Cousins to Homo sapien, modern humans, but humans consist of dozens of known species and common ancestor with chimpanzee apes. Interesting. So maybe, okay, well, I did not know that human had such a strict definition. Okay. Just popping in to share that I listened to your Ancient Apocalypse video while food prepping for the week. It made the drudgery enjoyable. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Josephine. I appreciate that. I know that humans and Neanderthals were very closely related. I don't know. I didn't think cousins was a bad word to use, but I guess there were better terms I could have used. I did not know that was going to be the spiciest discourse that video spawned. Alrighty. So let's see. That's a Mia question. All right. People have been critiquing the deplatforming of people like Alex Jones have just resulted in recruiting moving to more public spaces like Telegram. But I must ask, what is the alternative? Just letting these people do the recruiting on public platforms unchecked? Who's been critiquing the deplatforming of Alex Jones? Guy's a piece of shit. Yeah, I don't know. The only, like, there is like a, like, maybe there's an argument that like any term that is used to like, you know, to ban somebody horrible like Alex Jones will eventually be used to ban somebody for saying stuff like capitalism is bad. But I don't know. I'm going to take the dubs where I can take them. And definitely in that situation, I feel like there's no losing there. We can and did mate with them. Yes, pretty much all Europeans have a decent chunk of Neanderthal ancestry, if I remember correctly. Alrighty, let's see. When do we get the public universal friend deep dive that you teased in like every second video? Damn, put me on blast. So when I make videos, I tend to pitch them before my audience or before my patrons. My patrons get to vote on video ideas. I guess I could put it on my short list. I know that it's a video that's almost guaranteed to get like 0 views, but it is something I would like to make. I feel like with videos like that, I'm waiting for a time when it feels right to make a video like that. Like maybe, I don't know what the circumstance would be, but like calling like a public universal friend video, I feel like there's going to be a moment where having that kind of conversation about like, you know, non-binary identities would need to come out, and then that would be the good time for it. But it's definitely like I've not forgotten about it. You need to ask Lumi first. Yeah. I've all but like, what's it called? Lumi's like all but 100% promised to be into the in the video. So they have to be on board for me to do it too. Do it for the one Christian anarchist in your audience. I think there's a few Christian anarchists in the audience. We'll see. We'll see. I always get, the thing is, like, I always sort of fall behind because I always have more recent, like, videos that are more relevant to what's going on that I want to make. I also have a bunch of videos on topics that I would love to make, or I have video topics I'd love to make, but I know they wouldn't perform well. And so I'm sitting on them to either make them as like Nebula exclusives or something in that vein, like a Santa Muerte video. I've been wanting to make a Santa Muerte video for years, but I know that, like, you know, that's not what my audience wants to watch. So I have to think about it. Anyways. So let's see. We got one more question left. Do you think that the reason we underestimate what hunter-gatherers were capable of is because the ones that survived into an era where we started doing stuff like anthropology are the ones that live in hard, out-of-the-way places like the Outback and Kalahari? Like, people who built impressive structures you talked about in your last video were living in very rich environments like the Middle East or the Mississippi, places that would potentially build up a surplus without farming. All the hunter-gatherers that lived in places that were pushed out by farming colonizers before we could study them. I mean, that could be an answer, yeah. The fact that, like, they lived, like, the remaining hunting, even the, like, later hunter-gatherer people, like the people who lived on the Great Plains of the United States, yeah, they lived in much harsher climates. And so, yeah, they were sort of making the most out of what they had access to. Although I would say that, you know, if you look at like the American Southwest, like there were like, you know, people who, they had farming, never mind. But they had, like, you know, built like literal like cities in the desert. So, you know, what people are capable of, irrespective of geography can be quite impressive. But I think that there is some truth to that. Yeah. Like, I guess like, a lot of the places that were able to have the excess resources to make some of these great megaliths did live in environments that were more conducive to their survival. That makes sense to me. Alrighty. So we've got about 20 minutes left in this. I got that argument for David Graeber. Okay. I really got to read freaking Graeber's last book. I haven't yet, but CGP Grey is a great series that separates early civilizations by whether they had pack animals. Man, I'm realizing that I haven't seen a CGP Grey video in years. I haven't even seen one recommended to me in years. Like, is there still CGP Grey videos coming out? Like, I feel like I haven't heard that name in like years. Like, I thought that like CGP Grey made podcasts about how to be productive if you have infinite money, but I didn't know if he was still making YouTube videos.
On the internet, the algorithms are all...
It's kind of doing the Kurzgesagt thing. What's the Kurzgesagt thing? Let's see. Oh, yeah. All right, what's the last CGP Grey video that I remember watching, and see how long it's been? Oh my, there's a lot here. The last CGP Grey video I watched was 3 years ago. Dear God. It has been a bunch. Oh well. But I like literally haven't seen any of these videos. Like, I feel like they got memory hold for me. Doesn't that video just repeat Guns, Germs, and Steel line? Yeah, I mean, that's where I like CGP. Like, the reason why I didn't really watch CGP Grey anymore is because he made a video that was very dismissive of oral history, which is like one of the primary ways that we use the historical discipline to study marginalized people that don't normally get their voices told because they either didn't have a written history or, because their written history had been destroyed. And one of the ways to sort of reclaim those lost stories is through oral traditions and oral history. And he just sort of blanket dismissed it as a form of information. And I thought that was very ahistorical and sort of said a lot more about his priorities. And I was just like, okay, I don't think I need this in my life. And then, yeah, also repeating guns, germs, and steel, which, like, every historian hates. Every historian hates guns, germs, and steel. It's such a bad argument. And such a way to try and make, what's it called? To retroactively try to make an excuse for colonization by saying that it was just the natural outcropping it was just like the natural response of geography, that people in the rest of the world were just not as advanced as Europe. And it's fucking bullshit, because almost all of Europe's great advancements were stolen from China and the Middle East. And furthermore, doesn't explain why China, a civilization that had just as many clean breaks as Europe did, but didn't get into colonizing the Americas, despite the fact that they had all the technology to, and doesn't tuck into the imperial notions within things like the Christian faith and cultural parts of it, and also sees technological progress in this sort of linear fashion that also is not correct. There's actually a better book that I've recommended like a million times on this stream, which is called 1491 by Charles Mann, which shows that like a lot of the technologies, like if you don't think of technology as tech trees, you can see that there's a lot of indigenous technologies at the cusp of colonization that were just as good as Europeans, if not better. Like moccasins were way better designed than even the best designed European shoes, to the point where Europeans were desperately trying to buy moccasins to use. They stuck with bows instead of guns, because not just because guns were not this like naturally superior weapon to bows until like the 1800s, because guns were very loud and very inaccurate. So the only reason why they ever got mass adoption is because they were, it was easier to train somebody to shoot a gun than it was to train an archer. An archer takes like years to learn how to do their thing. But, and also indigenous people knew how to grow plants in their environment. And like they had farming practices that were much more sustainable and much more like resilient than European monocrops, and like just all sorts of stuff. Like, there's this idea that the indigenous people were so inferior to the Europeans technologically because their technology didn't look like Europeans, and because our vision of them comes from basically like a fucking post-apocalyptic idea, because like almost every indigenous, especially in North America, almost every indigenous culture we ran into had already been devastated by European diseases. And so, you try to make our society look like it's put together when 90% of people die, Actually, my most popular video on my channel that has like 600,000 some views is essentially a summary of the book 1491. Obsidian scalpels. Yeah. What's it called? The skills involved to make obsidian blades was absurd. and to this day still used. Indigenous people discovered aspirin as like they had medicines back when like Europeans were like doing bloodletting and stuff. Indigenous people were like making like herbal medicines out of local plants, and many of them turned out to have real medicinal effects. And so there's a whole lot of really of different ways to look at what was going on. So the whole idea that like the Inca had this sort of like state communism like setup that existed up until the Europeans brought down the whole system. There's some evidence that like if given some time, there was like this caste of Aztec sort of like philosopher priests that were definitely like developing towards more advanced technologies that definitely could have led to something more advanced. So it's a great joke about Mesoamericans getting absolutely blasted with myriad psychedelics while the Europeans were gorging on rotten wheat. Oh god. Oh man, so we've got about 10 minutes. What should we talk about? Got one last hurrah. Is there any other discourses to talk about? I don't know. I heard a wild theory that Moctezuma died almost immediately after Cortez got there, and his advisors propped him up. Weekend at Bernie style and dealt favorably with Cortez. Interesting. That would have been funny. It makes sense that psychedelic experimentation will lead to good medical practice. Yeah. I mean, there's no way to tell. I mean, there could be a way to tell, but like, I don't know if it was the way that it worked for them, but Indigenous use of psychedelics would definitely be definitely could all preambled the preempted the sort of way that we're talking about when it comes to the power that psychedelics have for helping with various mental health issues like PTSD or depression. Am I watching Picard? Yep. Trust me, there is no Star Trek that I will not be watching. I keep up with all the Star Treks all the time. And like, I like Picard. I've liked it the whole time. I know a lot of people hated it, but I was always a fan. So I just actually saw a very interesting fact about Picard season 2 that I was sad that it didn't happen. So you know how like in Picard season 2 there's a couple episodes where they go to like the fascist version of the modern day, and 7 of 9 is like the Federation president or something like that, and she has this like random husband. Does anyone remember this? Or am I anyways, apparently, in the earlier writings of that, the random husband was supposed to be Chakotay, and was supposed to be like played by Robert Beltran, but Beltran turned down the role because he didn't want to see Chakotay, even in like a dark timeline, didn't want to see Chakotay portrayed in such a fashion, and so they replaced him with just like some random guy. And then Beltran didn't come back until he saw that he liked the ideas they had for Chakotay for Prodigy. And yeah. Thoughts on bringing You Know Who back from DS9 after 24 years? Love it. I'm so happy that Picard is finally acknowledging, or that the Kurtzman new era of Star Trek is finally admitting that Deep Space Nine existed. Wild. Can you watch season 3 while skipping season 2? Yeah, definitely. All you need to know is that that Captain Rios is gone. 7 of 9 didn't seem affectionate to him in Voyager. Well, I mean, she didn't really seem affectionate to anybody in Voyager. But there was, in the last episodes, like the last couple episodes of Voyager, they did set up a romance between Seven and Chakotay. It was like in the last season they started developing that romance. Newest episode mentions new Borg. Yeah, but they're not. It's not important to the story, really. He's a good bean and gets a good standoff. Yeah, Captain Rio. Yeah, I am kind of, one of the things I'm kind of sad about is that Picard, like, because Picard is by its very nature a show that's going to be so mired in basically being a sort of conclusion and love letter to 90s Star Trek, that some of the new characters they developed for the role just don't get to breathe and be the people that you want them to, or you want to. Like, it seems that like Captain Rios, but also like what's her name? Why is her name escaping me right now? God damn it. I remember what her name is. The friggin' person who's with Worf right now. I can't remember what her name is, though. Raffi. Yeah, Raffi. Raffi doesn't really get as much time to develop as a character. Like, it feels like they're not going to... Like, because season 3 is like this big TNG reunion, they're having a tough time getting Raffi's, making her story go full circle. And I feel like she's going to be abandoned. And they just friggin' dropped, like, the Romulan, what's it called? The Romulan samurai character has just been dropped. Then, like, they dropped, what's her name? Like, the Data daughter character. They just sort of abandoned. Like, they, like... A lot of the new stuff they developed for the show, they aren't going to get as much love as they watched, because for season 3, honestly, because the first 2 seasons definitely were not the best that they could have been. The fact that they're doing this big reunion, I think, is definitely going to be big. But definitely the changelings don't morph a lot because it was really expensive, for sure. And I was thinking that they definitely could have done, they definitely could do, like, Odo again. Because, like, they're already implementing the, like, creepy Polar Express de-aging in this season. They did it a little bit when they had this scene between Picard and Riker that was, like... where they de-aged them by 20 years, and it was really uncanny to watch. But the thing is, like, Odo is, even though, you know, Rene Argenabois is already dead, but, like, his whole thing was to look like an uncanny valley version of a person, right? So they could totally do him. Crusher's 24-year-old son, played by a 34-year-old, was distracting. That is true. And furthermore, just like all of these people who are very obviously in their 70s and 80s having like a kid in their 20s is also weird. Like, I don't even know how old she is. Gates McFadden, how old are you? I imagine she's in her 70s. Yeah, she's 74. So yeah, like, and Patrick Stewart's in his 80s. So like, in their 70s and 80s, having like a 24-year-old son did feel a little weird. the other thing is that they also are going to have issues if they ever want to do a reunion with the Doctor. Like, are they going to de-age Bob Picardo to make him look like the way he does? I don't know. The new graphic for the Changelings is unnecessarily Cronenberg. I like the gold puddle. I actually didn't mind. The only thing I thought was a little silly is that they had that whole plot point about you have to find the Changeling's bucket, and then the bucket looked exactly like Odo's bucket, and I was like, was the bucket really, like, was a specific type of bucket really what they really necessary? Like, could it have just been any bucket? I did not get that part of it. That part I thought was very silly, but that was, yeah, but yeah. The Doctor just downloaded a new model. Yeah, I think that if they were to do Robert Picardo, or if they were going to do the Doctor, they should just recast him and just say that he changed his look. Maybe they could make it his whole thing. Maybe they could make it so that the Doctor, like, changes his look all the time, and that could be a thing. But I also would just be fun to have Bob Picardo come back to play that role again, which would be fun. Wasn't the bucket the thing that Odo was found in? Might be a changeling design. Okay, yeah, that's fair. Every changeling gets sent out in a ceremonial bucket. Exactly. The other thing, too, that I think I would like is... oh, man. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I'm hoping it is. I've heard rumors that this Section 31 show is going to have Alexander Siddig as a main cast member, which would be wild. I love it. I feel like that would fit so well. If they have to do a Section 31 show, then yeah, give me, like, you know, grumpy old man Bashir to be the person who runs Section 31. Fucking inject that shit into my veins. That would be great. Because I don't know if you guys have seen Alex Siddig lately, but he would play, like, grumpy old man so fucking well. But I have a feeling that, like, if they're doing Changelings this season, then they're definitely going to... I feel like there's going to be more Deep Space Nine things being touched this season than just that. They can't just, like, make a whole thing about a Deep Space Nine connection and then not have, like, a little bit more of it somewhere. Especially because they did all that work to make that comic book where Sisko comes back. Like, there is a canon comic series now of Sisko coming back and doing stuff, so yeah, the only places you can go to. Shouldn't they have him be married to Dax? They could, although I think, like, they established that in the non-canon books, it's sort of established that they don't really work out, the two of them, in the long term. But they've obviously shown that the non-canon Star Trek books are a thing that they take inspiration from, but not necessarily a thing they follow. But in the books, Ezri Dax becomes like a captain of her own ship at some point. Also, that the Titan has as, like, first officer, I think, is Tuvok at some point. So there's all sorts of fun stuff you could have done. And there was even an interview with Terry Farrell where she said that they could figure out some timey-wimey way for her to come back too. And I'd be like, yeah, give me some Jadzia. That'd be fun. All right. Correctly, as somebody in the chat must have figured out, is that to fill the last 15 minutes is just to get me talking about Star Trek. So that is great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. But it is now 2:00 and it's time for me to hit the books because I've got a bunch of reading to do today about Iraq and the media. So, hey, we were talking about Lumiru. Why don't we go raid Lumiru? Everyone loves Lumi. Get a bit more Lumi in your life. But yeah, there we go. Everybody, this has been great. I'll be back next week. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Be nice. Stay warm. etc.